Morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups, Norman. We are excited to have you all here today. We have a really fun and kind of different format today. So if you're a first timer to 1 Million Cups, just to introduce kind of the concept. So at this moment, as we speak at 9 a.m. all across the country, there are similar communities like this meeting. Some meet every Wednesday. Our club, our organization meets once a month, always the first Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. Normally, we would be, in a room with lots and lots of coffee, which is why it's called 1 Million Cups. And we'd be talking about entrepreneurship and how to support entrepreneurs in our community. And under a normal format, we'd have two speakers who give a presentation, and then we'd have a Q&A session. Today, we're going to mix it up a little bit. I'm excited about that. But welcome. If you're a first timer, I definitely see a couple of new faces, and we're thrilled to have you here today. Let's see if I can. Okay. So if you have not yet downloaded the 1 Million Cups app, they have a wonderful app that you can see past speakers, see what other organizations are doing. We have a great group here in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City has a chapter that meets a different Wednesday, so you can attend theirs. Tulsa has a chapter, and there's several other all around the country. So I'd encourage you to download the app and check in that you're here with us today. We couldn't do this without our sponsors. So thank you to the Norman Economic Development Coalition, the Norman Arts Council, which is where we normally meet when we're in person, the More Norman Technology Center, and Day Creative. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And also our organizing committee. We are a group of volunteers who organize this monthly event. You can see them here. If you are an organizing team member, just kind of give a wave or some jazz hands. There we go. Thank you. All right. Okay, so to jump right into our panel, because I'm really excited about this today. We have some great people joining us. So we're kind of celebrating normally in May, has always historically been National Small Business Week. I think that's actually shifted to the fall, but we're still going to celebrate small businesses in Norman this week and every other week, hopefully as well. So we put together this panel. We have a guest host, which is the Pioneer Library System. And so Heather Thompson, who's the business outreach specialist with the Pioneer Library System, is going to be our moderator today. And so we're really excited about that. Heather's been with PLS for 10 years, and she has done all sorts of things, provided programs on business, workforce development, financial education, and some really other interesting topics like cast iron cooking on a budget and raising chickens in the city. So I love the diversity here. So I'm going to pass it over to Heather. She's going to introduce our panelists today, and then we'll get right in started. So we'll have about 20 minutes of a moderated Q&A. Then we'll open it up to the groups for questions. And then after that, we'll have some time we'll put all of our experts into breakout rooms. And if you want to ask more specific questions and in-depth questions, we'll have time for that. And then we'll come back together as a group. So I think I'm going to pass it over to Heather. Heather, I can still drive the slide, so I'll go ahead and put you onto that next slide and let you take it away.
Kristen, I forgot I need to take myself off mute. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me and for including me in this group today. So today you can see on the PowerPoint, we have a great lineup of people, and Cameron Brewer, he's the Vice President of SBA Lending with BancFirst, and Cindi Carter, Economic Development Specialist with the Oklahoma District Office of U.S. Small Business Administration. Drew Hendricks, OU Startup Programs Lead with the Tom Love Innovation Hub, and some other interesting information he shared before we had the group jump in with us. So I'm excited to see this lineup of questions. So for everyone on the panel today, the three of you, this question is directed to all of you. People always think they need money first for their startup. What do startups really need to have in place before asking for money?
I'll jump in. One thing that is commonly said is the idea of putting together a business plan. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and I'm sure that the rest of the panel can touch on that as well. But even prior to that, and while you're forming a business plan, one thing I strongly recommend is establishing a network of individuals that you can ultimately form as part of your team. And the idea of a team, especially in the startup phase, can be pretty daunting. That can be daunting in that you don't know who it is that you need to meet in the first place, and also you just kind of jumping to the money side. How am I going to pay these people? There are a number of individuals across the Oklahoma City and Tulsa metros and across the state who deal in what I call fractional services. They may be a bookkeeper for a number of different businesses, or a part-time attorney for a bunch of different businesses, or do some CPA work. And those are the types of services that you're going to need in place to ultimately put together your business plan, because a big part of your business plan is going to be pointing out the team members, or call it your board of directors, or your mentors or support services that will ultimately go as part of your team. That if you may not have that experience directly yourself, you can point to them and say, while I may not have that experience, they do, and they're going to be an integral part of starting our business and growing our business over time. So I may kind of pass it along to talk a little more about the business plan side if that's of interest, but the rest of the panel can talk about whatever they'd like, obviously. So
thank you for sharing. Cindi, Drew, you want to?
Sure, I'll go ahead and piggyback on what Cameron had to say. We just really want to encourage everyone to do their research first and not commit to purchases or leases or anything like that until they do the research with the resource partners, and then also talk to their lender.
Thank you, Cindi. Drew, anything?
So I, like Kristen said earlier to the rest of the panel, I'm more the scrappy do kind of individual. Call it the Marine Corps nature of doing more with less. But also I work with students a lot. So we're talking, we don't have a lot of money or resources, are committed to other things. They both said exactly what I tell all of my students every time: research, research, research. So I'm a consumer insight researcher, so I'm going to constantly tell you to do that. You never know your customer well enough, and you can always be exploring a little bit more. And then to the team portion that Cameron mentioned, I will say it, and I guarantee you Sue and Logan could say the same thing, because they could repeat what I've said to them 1,000 times. Your team slide is your most important slide of your pitch deck, because at that point, that's your brain trust, that's your key assets, meaning your human resources, that whether it's the loan officer, the VC, the angel, whomever is going to say, I know you've got the drive and passion to do this. It's kind of clear. I can see it. Maybe you even got your research together, but who's going to support you? And when it's right there, it should be your first or second slide. They get to know, okay, they're not going it alone. They've done the initial work of getting other people interested. Because that's really what your team also says too, is that somebody else is committed to this in some way more than just yourself. And those only get brought on by good research.
Okay, thank you all for sharing. Drew, you're the next one to answer this question or help us out. I have a great business idea, but I need assistance structuring my revenue model. What resources do you recommend for me?
Well, first, I challenge that you have a great business idea. It's going to be asking you to tell me a little bit more about it, right? I'm going to want to hear immediately what your value proposition is. And I always challenge people, give it to me in 7 to 10 words, right? Challenge yourself to say, I do this thing, and I do it for these people, right? It should be implicit. It should be implied. It should be readable that you're doing a value for this group. Resources to looking at a revenue stream. My favorite book, and in fact, it's the book that SC threw at me when we went through our entrepreneurship, was The Business Model Generation. That's written by Alexander Osterwalder. It's a really greatly designed book. If you just type in business model canvas, it'll come up. Business models are a little bit different than a business plan. They're a little bit more lean, but I highly encourage you to look at them. Main reason I say that, it's just more knowledge. There's multiple types of revenue streams. You really need to look at how you think you might best make money. And the first place to do that is to re-examine your value proposition and then look at your customer segments, right? what's my value? Who am I trying to reach? How am I going to reach them? And how's the best way to pull money from that? Getting that thinking in line is kind of your first place to start. Resources for you, again, it's more about looking at different models, looking at these different books and different types, but then also just talking to your customer, your most valuable resource. How do they want to pay? What services are they already using? Look at comparable customers of other companies and say, well, this model seems to be working. It's one of those things that I'm always going to tell you to go look at your customer, because you can go look for those resources that'll say this is the right way to make money based on quantitative data. In a small business startup, in a startup, qualitative is going to be really powerful for you. What did that person say to you that said, if you did this, I'd buy your product? That's what you're going to want to look at.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm hearing that I need to have an elevator pitch for my business that I think I want to create. And then also that it's important to know what your customer wants, because we think we know what they want, but do we really? So thank you. Cameron, you're next. As a lender, for what characteristics are you looking when considering a customer for a commercial loan? How much do things like credit, student loans, or other debts affect my ability to get a loan?
Yeah, so I'll first touch on the characteristics. I could go down a whole host of characteristics for this, but just to kind of summarize it, it's a balance of confidence and knowing what you don't know, and accepting that. The confidence, entrepreneurs are rarely short on passion. That's the reason that they're doing this in the first place. They're passionate about a product, they're passionate about a service, they're passionate about running a business. And along with that comes that confidence. However, you have to have confidence in everything you're talking about. There are things that you may not have, you may not be an expert in, and that is okay. Again, that kind of falls in that team aspect. But oftentimes I kind of going back to the idea of a business plan. Oftentimes I'll just tell a quick story. I have multiple times seen a business plan from a business plan consultant that was forwarded to me from the business owner 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after they received the business plan. That is exactly what you do not want to see as a lender, because that means that someone else put together their business plan. In that case, they've likely not even read through it. You need to be a part of that process. And so being a part of that process will give you that confidence to know what's in there. And again, kind of going to the know what you don't know. Where are the aspects that you need to bring yourself up to speed on, research, talk to those individuals. You need to allow yourself to let your guard down and ask what I'll call, there's no stupid questions, but to you, it might be a stupid question. Go ask a lender, what does a debt coverage ratio mean? What does how does personal debt affect my ability to get a business loan? That kind of leads to the second question. Coming out of school, it's very likely you will have student loans, other personal debts. If you've been in business for a while, you may have a mortgage, things like that. Again, talk to a lender. You can even don't be scared to talk to the lender that you ultimately want to talk to about getting a business loan. What does this all mean, and how will this affect me? That lender is there to get you to yes, if they can. And so they want to work through things like that with you to line out what is feasible, what's reasonable. Don't think that it's like you're putting in a mortgage application and this is your one shot, you're going to get yes or no, up and down. This is very much an iterative process. That's, hey, let's talk this through and work on this together to figure out how we can get you to yes. So I know that's not specifically getting into like the nitty gritty of personal credit and student debt, but I just recommend reaching out to somebody to ask those questions, and I'm sure they would be happy to talk through it.
Thank you. I'm hearing again, lean heavily on the people that you know in your network. So thank you. Cindi, you're next. You should know this by, in your sleep. What specific items are required to apply for an SBA loan, and what resources are available to help me prepare for the process of applying for a loan program?
Well, I want to focus more on the resources because even though you will, which it's already been brought up a few times, a business plan is important, and I'll cover a few things, but the resource partners, we have just like 1 Million Cups and chambers, and there are so many resources out there where you can network and talk to people and figure out what your customer base is and that type of thing. But we also have funded resource partners that we work with, which is the Small Business Development Center. They have offices throughout the state. SCORE, our group of mentors, we have offices in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And they are phenomenal and help in their area of expertise. And then we have the Women's Business Centers, and there are 3 locations, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Durant. They all provide free counseling, free training, at least right now, pretty much all the services are free of charge. And they really should be your first stop as far as getting your business plan together. They'll walk you through what you need to do, the feasibility of your project, who your competition is, and help you prepare before you go see your lender. And we also, for businesses that want to get into contracting, we work with the procurement technical assistance centers through the tech centers, and they help with the contracting side of things. So there's just a lot of opportunities out there if you utilize that team approach and just take advantage of all the resources that are out there. But as far as documentation, you're going to need a business plan primarily, and where is your money coming from? What are your financials going to be for the next 3 years? If it's a startup, they're looking at 3 years. Your certification licenses, the resource partners will walk you through what you need on those type of things. Tax returns, resumes for the principals. And then, like I said, just take advantage of those before you go talk to your lender. And we always encourage people go to the lender they're already working with. And then if they don't do SBA lending, then they can reach out to us and we can kind of direct them.
Thank you, Cindi. Cameron, what are the biggest myths or assumptions about getting a bank loan for your business?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I could go down probably a bunch of these, but I'm going to highlight a few that I think are most important. First of all, oftentimes people think that banks are there to tell you no. Banks want to make loans. That's the entire way that banks do make money, is off of interest off of loans. And so, I always tell somebody that I'm never going to outright tell you no. I'm always going to work to kind of help you, give you a path to get to a yes. If that's not a yes right away, it's, hey, where do you need to be 3 months, 6 months, maybe 2 years from now, depending on your situation, to get to a yes, so then you can go get your loan and make this happen. Another myth is that you have to have a lot of money to get money. Having a strong personal guarantee certainly helps, but that's a big reason why SBA exists, is to allow for those who are truly in the startup phase. You do have to, if you're a startup, you do have to put you do have to bring some cash to the table. Sometimes that may mean that you need to bring a partner involved, or that you need to, again, give it another 6 months to a year to save up the necessary funds to put in. But there are opportunities there that allow you to generate wealth through the business by getting a loan while not having a lot of resources to begin with. And again, that's a big reason why SBA exists. Related to that, personal credit being the end all be all. Again, that's a big reason why SBA exists. Sometimes with a more traditional loan, a bank may pull personal credit and you have to be over a certain threshold. As part of SBA, a bank has the ability to basically look at the story behind someone's personal credit as opposed to just looking at the number. So if there's a reasonable explanation for, I always say that, unfortunately, one of the most common stories with personal credit is an individual that had like $150 medical bill that for some reason or another, they never saw that bill. The hospital never had the address, or it just, absentmindedly was never paid. Those are the types of things that can highly bring down your personal credit. So I'd say watch out for that in the first place, but it may be something you never know about. And the bank will know if that's pulling down your credit quite a bit. And those are reasonable stories that we can say a $150 medical collection brought down a personal credit score adversely to the point that SBA is required. But again, SBA is an option to then move forward with that, because we can look at the story, not just the number. And then lastly, that SBA is always slow and cumbersome. I can tell you, working as a credit analyst in SBA 13 years ago, some of that was true, but the process is much more streamlined at this point, especially working with SBA preferred lenders, which are all throughout the Oklahoma City Metro, and it can be a very quick process, really similar to a conventional bank loan. So those are just a few things, but be happy to reach out and talk about anything else. So.
Thanks, Cameron. Drew, how do I know the right time to look for investors or borrow money for my startup?
Well, so not to offend any of the bankers in the room as well, but you probably don't need a loan right now if you're asking this question, because one, you probably will know if you're ready, because someone will have told you, hey, you're ready to pitch. Really, genuinely, if you're doing all the things we've suggested so far, having the right team, having the right network, someone will tell you you're ready. And at that point, you'd be seeking funding. I always tell my students to avoid a bank loan, right? Because most of them are in such an early startup stage that entertaining the idea of a bank loan is kind of it's an odd temptation, right? It seems that most people are looking for what we call a light switch. That is, if I only had $50,000, I could turn on the lights and start making money. Bad way to start thinking, like just a really inefficient way to start thinking. It's also almost kind of magical thinking, unless you've got, like Cameron said, the money to just walk into a bank. Here's $20,000 down. I need this loan to get started. So back to how do I know? Your pitch is sound. You know your value proposition inside and out. You can do your pitch with your eyes closed, without presentations, without seeing your audience on Zoom, off of Zoom, in person, out of person, in the elevator. My point is, you will know it by heart. Your team will know it. Your team is on board and ready to move at the drop of a hat. Like, hey, it's real. We got an appointment with the VC tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning before they get on the flight. You have to be there, right? There's a certain level of commitment to startups that you need to have. As Cameron said, you will be expected to know everything, but you can't. So how do you learn it? How do you get the experts to help you get to that point? You'll know. I'm not trying to just be fanciful thinking. Like, you just will know, right? You will know that this is the next step. I've gotten my team together. I've done as much research as I can. I've gone as far as my personal bank account will let me go. My runway is shrinking. I need an extension on my runway. Runway meaning obviously as more time as I need to actually take off and launch. But that, once you have your blocks in place, so I speak about business models more than business plans because they're just more startup friendly. Those will all be in place, right? The right side of your business model and the left side of your business model, meaning you will understand your customers, your value propositions, and your net revenue streams. You'll also understand your key partnerships, your key activities, and cost structures. You will know. And if you don't, and you're seeking advice, come to someone like myself at the startup programs, because we have offerings for the OU community or for the community writ large, our incubator and accelerator. Get involved with Startup 4 or 5, seek out those experts and say, hey, can I do my pitch for you? Nothing crazy, but what would it be for me to have you look at my pitch? There's nothing wrong with seeking experts there too.
Thank you. Cindi, what do you wish everyone knew about the SBA lending programs?
First of all, I want to just reiterate what has been said. And I think we're kind of just really trying to beat it in. The team concept is so important, and taking advantage of the knowledge of others and sharing what's going on in your whether it's a potential business or existing business, if you, it's okay to not know things. You need to reach out and leverage those that do. And also, you know, your lender is your friend. You need to talk to them about anything that you have going on, whether it's at the beginning or throughout the life of your business. There's flexibility in the SBA programs that the lender can help you with, but if they don't know what's going on in your business, they can't help you. So your lender's your friend, stay connected, let them know what's going on. And there's a lot of opportunities too, for whether it's a startup or existing business. And as you all know, right now we're going through with the disaster, we have a lot of funding opportunities, and having that relationship with the resource partners and with your bank, and just staying connected, that's how you're going to get the help and get through those times.
Thank you, Cindi. I think it's great that we're all here today and that Kristen and Sarah put this together, because this already is just proof with 21 people in this group that there is a network out there to support people that are looking to start a business. So thank you to you both. So all of you on the panel, what's the best tip you have for someone looking for ways to fund their startup business?
I'd be happy to start. We've talked about, I think Drew hit on this, you know, if you're not sure if you have enough money, that's, you know, where you need to start. Some people, you know, what we see, probably the biggest reason for failure is that people will start with the savings they have and say, well, if I need more money later, I'll get it. And that's just not the mentality you need to have. If you do your research up front, and figure out exactly what you need and ask for the money, even if it's a line of credit, have something there to help you get through it. But that's where we see a lot of issues, is where people jump in and don't have enough startup capital. So that would be my tip.
Yeah, I'll jump in. First of all, I can't reiterate what Cindi said enough. Having the working capital, startup capital you need, because you know that, and I'll also say, whether it's an investor, a bank, whoever's providing that funding, there's a mutual interest there. They don't want you to come back and have to ask for more money. They want you to have that money up front, so then you can go do what you need to do to grow your business. You know, I could say it's not as much about funding. Again, it's just kind of to the team aspect. But if you're going to partner with somebody in a business, make sure that you have some very honest personal conversations to make sure that they align with your same values. That's something that we see more often than we like, that you have business partners that get excited about an idea, but they never really talk about what matters to them. And that will come to a head 6 months, a year from now, especially around the idea of money, and who your customer base is and who you're seeking. So, and that will come through in any sort of pitch, that partners are on the same page. You know, and it's very obvious, you know, as a lender, as other investors, we're hearing pitches all the time. And so we have a very good sense of whether partners are on the same page, or if there's things that aren't aligned here, that very likely will come to a head pretty quickly.
Drew, do you have anything to add in?
A lot, to be absolutely honest. Like, there's a lot of tips, because you know, it's always one of those things. Somebody would come to you like, how do I get money? And you talk about everything but money. And I know that can be like really frustrating, especially if you're just getting started. Because if you're just getting started, you're just not ready for the funding, because as Cameron just mentioned about like the idea, the intimacy of business, right? It is more intimate than marriage in some ways, because you have to share your books. You can't have separate bank accounts, right? everyone's got to, at least in the leadership, has to know what's going on. Other people are involved in the situation, meaning outside VCs, maybe outside lenders who have a stake in this thing that, for all intents and purposes, has a birth date and its own social security number. Like a business, when born, sits in the room with you. It's an entity outside of yourself that must be cared for, but has its own interests. I mean, according to the Supreme Court, it's a person, right? So here it is, this business that's existing, and you have to invest in it, right? And that means time. Okay. Your currency right now is time. That's why we talk about runways. It's how much time you have. Like, I can feed and clothe myself and work on this business at this pace for this long, right? That's your runway. That's your personal runway. A lot of things, the academics at OU would be remiss if I didn't mention that, like, the focus is actually now on solo founders, right? VCs and stuff don't want to see a team, a founding team, not a team deck, a founding team of like 6 people, right? 3 is getting close to too much. It's this 1 to 2 solo founders. And what they mean is, they don't mean your team doesn't only has 2 people. It's that 1 to 2 people are driving this venture, right? That it's theirs. They're the ones that they know will be at every meeting, that will be working from 4 a.m. to whenever, or not sleeping, or doing the whole 80 to avoid 40 thing, right? So the tips there is, like, keep that lean, keep your founders lean, because the team's super important, but somebody has to drive it. And as Cameron mentioned, that can get really difficult if a bunch of values are misaligned, or what people need out of the venture are misaligned. So that's just one tip. But when it comes to seeking funding or getting funding, like, have a good value proposition, have a good business model, not just a business plan that a consultant puts together for you that you get to say it checks all the boxes. The business model will be honest to you and will say whether or not this is going to work. And if it's not going to work, kill it. Kill it quick, kill it fast. Okay. You cannot be married to a thing that doesn't exist yet. And if you get so wrapped up in it, you'll just let it linger and let it go. And then it'll drain your pocketbook and the pocketbooks of others, and never actually serve the customer's interest. So if it can be killed, you should kill it. Last tip would be that same sort of, apologize, I got wrapped up in that response and then I kind of lost my train of thought. Come back to me on that last one, because it is important. I wanted to meet you one more time, but the idea, share your idea. Thank you, my brain. Share your idea, because at the end of the day, I get students who are like, well, I need an NDA before I talk to you. No, you don't. No, you don't, right? It's so early. I'm not going to steal the opportunity for work, right? If you haven't done it, all I'm doing is stealing your opportunity to go do the work. And if you've done the work well enough that I think it's valuable, I'll just pay you for it. No one's out to steal your idea. The entrepreneurial and startup community is not predatory. Not usually. There's elements outside of it that are absolutely predatory, but within it, just like with 1 Million Cups, Tech Plus had a great event last week, the Pioneer Library System, OU, this network is here to reach across and constantly help up, right? You need to be sharing your idea, getting feedback, talking insights, not just from customers, but possible partners, allies, and individuals that just want to support you. So share your idea. If you have the next greatest best thing, share it and people will support it. They're not going to steal it.
I think too, the sharing incites some excitement for you and extra support. I mean, I get really excited when someone shares their business idea with me, and I think that they leave with that knowledge that there's someone out there interested in what they have created. So we're going to move over to the group asking our panel some questions. So we've got one question in the chat right now for the panel. What recommendations do you have to get your personal finances in place to start a business?
I'm just going to say my wife would laugh at me if I tried to take this question on. So I'm just going to leave it to the financial experts.
I would say know what's in your personal credit report. That's that's the starting point for then fixing anything. If you don't know what's in there or what the issues are, and there you can go to any of the 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, and I think you're afforded 1 free credit report from each of those on an annual basis. That may not tell you exactly what your score is exactly, but it's going to tell you what issues you have. So if you don't know your issues, you can't fix it. As far as everything else, I mean, stay on top of your personal debt. If you, one major issue that people run into is overbearing credit card debt. And if you're in that situation, or if you find yourself in that situation, there are ways to package credit card debt and basically term it out or spread it out into monthly payments. But you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to also have to commit to and have the discipline to packaging that and then not building up more credit card debt. You often never start you hear about amazing stories about a person who started a business on credit card debt. Don't do that though. If at all costs, if you can avoid starting a business on a credit card, don't be tempted by the 12 months free interest, because in 12 months you may not be up and making money, and then you're gonna have to start paying that, and it's gonna start accruing interest at a rate that is exorbitant. Go to your friends and family to ask for that money. They're going to be a lot more reasonable than a credit card company or a bank that is like, yeah, sorry, you signed the dotted line. No can do. And then establish a savings plan. I know that's kind of a simple thing to say, but ultimately, if you're going to get a bank loan, you're going to have some cash to put into it. And so you're going to need to start saving that cash. So just commit to, setting aside money that you can then bring to the table and say, yeah, I've got my necessary 10% or 15% or 20% or whatever the bank and the SBA may require.
Thanks, Cameron. Cindi, did you have anything to add in there?
No, I put in the chat Consumer Credit Counseling Service. That's just one that it's a nonprofit that we're aware of to help people get their credit taken care of. But I think Cameron did a good job covering that.
Thank you. Right, from Carter in the chat, you talk about the importance of a team and that it is important to have that team identified before pitching for money. Are you referring to paid people, contractors, for example, or informal advisors such as the service providers Cindi mentioned, as in local SBDC, Tech Center, Innovation Center, REI? If your business model consists of simple services, so we've got kind of two pieces to this. If your business model consists of simple services you deliver on your own, is it still important to have a team, even if all you have are friends and contacts who have put up with your ramblings?
I'll kind of jump in on the first part too. When I speak of, I'm almost always talking about non-paid individuals who are like Cameron mentioned, like fractional services and partners, friends, strangers you convince to become your friends and then are willing to support you. It's the idea of, it's almost like a board, right? Unless you have that committed founder, right, that is along with you, that is doing just as much work. And then you might also mention we have our marketing advisor, right? Is this person, and that's just showing the people that are with you. And I'm usually, if not always, talking about team members rather than employees, especially contractors. Contractors, that might be an interesting thing to like list as a key partner, because maybe you have a really good deal with a contractor that it makes it easier or more cost effective for you to provide your services, which like would appeal well to a VC or a business or the bank, right? Oh, good. They've already established partnerships with other companies. They've got a little bit of advantage there. I can see how that's going to affect their cost structure, so on and so forth. So I'm almost always talking about non-paid individuals that are personally invested or otherwise invested in supporting your business model or idea. What can you repeat that, like the last portion again, just to touch on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the last piece, sorry, I've got to scroll up a little bit. If your business model consists of simple services you deliver on your own, is it still important to have a team, even if all you have are friends and contacts who've put up with your ramblings?
I would say if you're pitching to a VC, absolutely, right? Like they're still going to want to see, one, if you're doing that sort of thing, this isn't to be offensive. It's not likely you'll need a VC. You're probably not venture worthy, meaning like they're not talking millions of scale, right? Where you're going to jump up from, a few $100,000 in revenue to several hundred million, right? That VCs are looking for really big returns on a long lasting unicorn or something like that. So say you're making confectionaries or fashion or some of your own products or something like that, you're probably not talking to them. I can't speak so much to the business plan from the banker side, so I'll let them do it. But even if you were approaching for money, it'd be good to have that friend or family who has an MBA and it's like a business consultant. You would still list them, right? You're still seeking their advice. They're part of your board or a group of advisors that you lean on. So yeah, they're not team members, they're not your employees or anything like that, but they have a network that they can easily access. So if I see a weakness in their marketing plan, I know that they have somebody to go speak to, right? Hey, your marketing plan looks a little weak here, or it could be bolstered up. Oh, wait, they've got an advisor in marketing. Go talk to Jeff and come back to us and we'll talk more. So they can be important depending on what you need them for. Otherwise, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, I think Drew hit on all that really well. The part, absolutely utilize all free resources available to you, and there are so many across the state that are available. Really good advice that's out there that is free, and but I'd also recommend, part of a team is again, knowing what you don't know. You're not an attorney. You might be, which is great, and you can be your own attorney. But if you're not an attorney, make sure you have an attorney that, especially if you're in contracting, that you have listed that says, this is my attorney in the event that I need to review a contract, or I have, another one is HR issues. Everybody thinks that they're an HR expert and they can research. This is very, very technical stuff that can nosedive the company quickly. Meet those individuals, have those individuals listed, have them on call, essentially. Who's keeping your books? That's a question I always ask somebody. Are you keeping your own books? If so, do you know how to keep books? If not, then how are you going to learn? A lot of that, it can be intuitive in some ways to pick up, but it also can be pretty daunting, and is too commonly set aside, that a business may be a year or two in and has no idea if they're making money. Too often a business looks at the top line and says, yeah, I made $900,000 last year. They're talking about the revenue. How much did you actually make, which is your net income or your earnings? And that, those are two very different things. And those are, keeping good books is what will tell you, if you're making money, if you're not, what you need to tweak, what you need to, how you need to grow, things you need to add, things you need to cut, to then get yourself to a place where you do have cash flow, as opposed to just saying, yeah, I've got $900,000 in sales. So that's part of what I mean about a team, in addition to kind of more the advisor side of what Drew was talking about.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that, just kind of piggyback, but if you work with the resources that are on the call or the ones we've talked about today, they will tell you the specialists that you need to employ. But that's very important to make sure you have everybody on your team that you need. The other thing I wanted to mention is, if you don't know, maybe you've got a partnership or multiple owners. There may be somebody that's actually going out and doing whether it's an IT company, plumbing company, restaurant, whatever the case may be. But all owners need to understand the financials of the business. You can't leave it to one person to say, well, he's the numbers person, I'm going to trust them to do it. Everybody needs to understand and be able to see what's going on financially with that business and stay in tune. Just for the safety and protection of the business.
Well, yeah, and to piggyback on that, it kind of goes back to what Drew was saying. There needs to be a point person. There needs to be one person who is can discuss all aspects of the business. And so, if a banker, a VC, or even a family friend who loaned you money ask you, these questions about your financials, or a HR issue, you need to be able to answer that. And the only way to answer that is to seek advice and learn it through, whether that's through individuals or through, reading about it or whatever it may be. And one other thing I'll mention too, that is not discussed enough is don't be scared to talk to competitors. That's something that I think people are like, oh, well, you know, they're not going to talk to me, especially in Oklahoma. People are pretty friendly about, yeah, we want to, you know, if you have one competitor and you're really going to eat into their business, maybe that's not a great idea. But let's say you're opening a Subway franchise, go talk to other Subway franchise owners. They're not going to be worried about you stealing the few sandwiches off of their table. If you're doing well, then that helps their brand as well. You know, that's just one example, but go and it doesn't even have to be competitors. Talk to other business owners, because all business owners will have some sort of advice about just tips to do, things to do. They're in it every day, and that's what they do. So
Thank you, all of our panel. I have taken lots of notes, and so I have summarized a lot of things that I took down, which was know your team, be vulnerable, know your strengths and weaknesses, and be able to admit what those are, ask for help. And so I like to cook. And so one of the things that Kristen and Sarah and I were talking about when we were planning this was if you have to have a recipe. And so what I'm seeing with all of the people here today is that you are giving us the ingredients to create a fantastic business, just like we create a fantastic meal. So is there any last thoughts before I send this over to Kristen and Sarah to take over before we do that?
I would say to the recipe thing, I like it. I like the metaphor. I'd change up a little bit. All we've maybe done is given you the pots, pans, utensils, and then maybe like, hey, here you can access the stove. The ingredients are your value proposition. I'm not gonna look. The last thing if it wasn't in your summary is kill it quick, right? I'm gonna say it over and over again. I know that sounds fatalistic, but it's not. It's kill it quick so you can get to the right one, right? Pivot if you need to, but sometimes the pivot's not enough. Drop the value proposition that doesn't work. The ingredient tastes bad, or it's spoiled, or it doesn't look good, or you can't get the fresh produce you need to go into this thing to make it a truly delicious meal. Then drop that one and go get the other one, right? If it's a seasonal thing, that recipe is not going to work with outdated and unseasonal products. It's just not. The produce is going to taste as fresh. So go to the next recipe. Go to the one that's going to get you to cash flows, right? Now, if you got a personal passion kind of thing, which I do, right? The reason why I'm not doing a startup right now is I know mine's going to take a cash investment that I don't have, and I don't feel comfortable asking for. So my runway is fairly long. And that also happens to do with like intellectual property that's of the creative kind. So for me, I know what I can and can't do here. So I've chosen not to, because it's the race I want to run. That's the business I want to do. So I have to make it work. And that means setting it aside for quite some time. Same for you all out there. Maybe you don't have to kill it, but maybe you have to shelve it. And then there's something else you need to do to keep your runway open, to keep entrepreneurial, keep the idea of actually even owning your own business alive. One last thing, Cameron had mentioned, go talk to your competitors. If you're young enough, or if you're flexible enough, go work for your competitor. You want to go open a restaurant, go work for McDonald's and see how they do it. Go see what efficiency looks like. Go see what cost structures and pay structures there's and managing hours looks like. That's just something I was always told, is you can learn a lot. And I think really that kill it mentality, I don't want to scare you with it. It's to keep you from making a bad financial decision, right? At the end of the day, the business still is out there to serve your needs. It's there to make you a profit and help you do what you want to do. It may be your passion, but if it's drowning you in debt, or eventually is going to drag you into debt and kill all your dreams, well, then it's best to jettison it now.
I love that. Thank you, Cindi, Cameron, and Drew. We're going to move over to the last portion of our session today.
All right, Sarah, do you want to share the screen? All right, everybody. So again, in the interest of kind of getting everyone to keep networking, we wanted to kind of provide at least 15 minutes, 2 rounds, if possible, to go into a breakout room. And so what we want to do is we have a breakout room that is set up for everybody who spoke on our panel. And what you can do is you can now, if you go to the next slide, Sarah, you should be able to go down now to the breakout room icon in Zoom. It might look a little different if you're on your apps, but you can then go into a particular breakout room to continue the discussion. So there's a breakout room for Drew, for Cindi, and Cameron. And so what you can do is hit breakout room, and then you could go ahead and click on the person you want to talk to and then hit join. So you all can do that now and continue your conversations. And then if it's not showing up, if you want to type in the chat which session or what group or room would you like to go into, I can add you into those rooms.
Heather, Kristen, I'm not seeing a pop-up to get into another room.
Okay, I will put you into your room.
There we go.
Anybody else need to get into a particular room and not having it pop up?
Great. And for organizers on the team, if you just want to pop into a room, that would be great.
Just help. Let's see. Josh or Kirsten, do you need help going? Oh, Kirsten, do you need help going into a room?
I mean, I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure I don't see my little green bar lighting up. I didn't see the thing for the breakout rooms.
Okay. Would you like to continue a conversation with anyone in particular?
I wouldn't even know where to begin or anything. I'm just my biggest thing is I'm really new to this sort of thing. So really I'm just here to listen and try and gather as much information.
Okay. What I might do, I'll add you to Drew's room. And then that might be fun. You know Drew. Okay. Do you want to go into Cindi or Cameron? There's
what were their specialties again? I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Cindy's doing more like small business association funding, loans, grants, and then Cameron is with a traditional bank. So if you have questions about traditional bank loans or methods of how banks help businesses.
Let me see if let me go Cindi. Let me see if there's
All right, I will send you there.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
You're welcome. And you should have the button pop up now.
I do. Thank you.
Final announcements. We just actually relaunched our Launch OKC Metro website. So there's actually like a front-facing website for it. And then all of the things I showed you how to use the other week, those are embedded in it. So even if you never want to log into the community platform, you can refer people to look at the resources, events, and whatever. And so I just wanted to share that with everyone. We're trying to really keep in mind the terms and words that our entrepreneurs use when they're looking for resources. So probably after today's session and in some discussions with other people, we're probably going to add a funding tab so that we can start to provide specifically all of these funding resources. Because as we mentioned at the beginning, a lot of this revolved around the fact that the first thing people ask for is funding, but we know that there's probably 12 other things that they need. And so feel free to use this site. I want to thank Heather Thompson for being our moderator for today. So if everyone could give her a round of applause, jazz hands. And then again, Cameron, Cindi, and Drew, thank you all for sharing your knowledge and information. And we hope that now that you all have met somebody with SBA, somebody with a bank, somebody with the university startup programs, you feel confident to just contact somebody else. That's really what I feel like 1 Million Cups is all about. When Sarah talked about why we exist, it's to make these connections so that we can feel comfortable to ask about the next steps. So I hope you can share some information you learned today with somebody else and then connect with somebody else in the future. So finally, our next meetup will be on June 2nd, and we did a poll last month, I believe, right, Sarah, asking if people would want to come back to in person. And so I think the committee and organizing group is looking at different options as to where we might be able to do that to bring everyone back safely, and still do probably some sort of live streaming element just so that we can have that available for people who don't yet feel comfortable. So stay tuned for that. Sarah, do you have any other announcements about that?
I think that's all I have. We're excited. I think we are going to look at doing it in person, and we're really excited to see people and build back up where we were. And I just one final thank you out to our panel. You guys are awesome. Thank you for your time, and to our moderator, Heather. Where'd you go? I lost you on my screen. There you go. And we really appreciate you guys. Again, this is about building our community here in Norman. So if anybody has any questions, anyone on our organizing team is happy to help you, work with you. You know, there are no questions that we will not let you ask. So please reach out to us anytime you need something. If you are a business owner and entrepreneur that would like to present in a more traditional 1 million cups format, normally we have 2 companies present each month. We would love to have you. You can make that. You can apply on our website at 1millioncups.com/Norman, and we would love to have you. We've got one of our speakers booked for June, but we're still looking for another. So please submit your application today, and our team will walk you through the whole process. It's super painless and super fun. I think that's all.